Are you trying to get your shift together?
Welcome to the Shift Sisters podcast, where real conversations inspire real transformations. We're not experts, but we're experiencers. I'm Sandra Sa.
And I'm Jennifer Richter.
We're your Shift Sisters.
Whether you're shifting like a sloth or it looks like you're having an exorcism, this is your space to breathe, reflect, and remember. We're here to talk shift with you.
So welcome, Shifties. I am super excited for this podcast episode. We are going to dive into motherhood. And as we like to do on the Shift Sisters podcast, talk about shifting, talk about changes, transitions, leveling up. And today we're going to talk about shifting like a mother. That is our title for today's podcast. And we have a special guest. But before we talk to our special guest, I wanted to introduce Jennifer Richter, my cosmic mama friend here. And today, as we go through the conversation around motherhood, we have a special guest. We have Ibetliza Frias. She is a doula. She is a birthing doula, a postpartum doula, and she's also a holder of sister circles, which is the way I met her. And I can share a little bit later on in this conversation about how we met and all of the important work that she does around mothers and supporting women in general. So, Ibetliza, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited that you're here today.
Thank you so much, Sandra and Jennifer, for inviting me to be here with you in this conversation that is so important in the world, which is motherhood, right? And I feel like motherhood is something like we're always redefining. And it's important to get in the conversation of like, what is actually, how is it unfolding as a collective, but also in our homes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yes, of course. There's so much to unpack there.
So much, but let's start with this amazing, beautiful name. I want to know what your name means, the origin of it. It's incredible. I've never heard a name like this. It's super unique.
Thank you. So my name is Ibetliza, and Ibetliza comes from my parents are from the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
So its origin, I mean, its roots is there. Once upon a time in my younger years, when also was curious, like, what does this name mean? It was unique in its spelling and
Yes.
in the pronunciation, and I didn't hear many other girls have, and I'm like, I wanted to research and I came across the definition of it coming from the root, an African root meaning hope.
Mm.
And that was very interesting to me because in some way I feel like I am that little light of hope in women's path of motherhood and so many other areas. So yeah, it's funny how that came full circle for me. Like doing my research as a young woman and then now as a grown woman, like, could that possibly be it? And it kind of resonates.
Have you ever heard? I don't think I have it on my bookshelf, but it's a book called Soul Contract Decoded. And it high level, it'll say numerology for your name, but it's way more than just typical numerology for your name. And you can find, excuse me, you can find someone to give you like a reading about it. But
Oh,
it is
wow.
so amazing because it talks about like how you live your purpose according to your name and things like that. And I'm going to send you after this like a link to it so you can look up the book and maybe find someone to do a reading for you. But I think there's something super powerful for you to know about the meaning and the essence of your name because it's got a lot of power behind it. I can feel it.
Wow. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. I'd be so curious to dive into that book,
Mhm.
and yeah, and do a little more research on that. I love numerology and
And
yeah,
then you'll love it.
absolutely. Yes.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Oh,
yes. Now I want to figure out my name and all of
mhm.
that. So thanks for putting that in the conversation, Jen. So Jen, I'd love to start with you. What is your vibe check for today?
My vibe check is a black racer snake. I know it's terrifying for a lot of people. People have their own issues with snakes, but black racers have very divine purpose for our environment. that they're calm and they're steady and they're intentional. They don't get spooked easy because they don't intend any harm. So they, are not super reactive. But they're also about the shedding of things that do not serve them anymore and being able to just let go without restriction. And I am really having that type of energy that is with me this week. So I embrace it and love it.
Girl, that's so like that's
Mhm.
so
That's
profound,
so deep.
right?
That's so deep, Jen. Wow. I was like, this is our morning conversation. Okay.
For my check-in. But I'm just saying, like, wow. And you look like I mean, it sounds terrible. You look like a
You
snake
look like a snake. No?
with the black and like your hair is shiny and you know how they have the coils in a so you are embodying that essence, that presence, that
Mhm.
wisdom, and you're shedding. Oh, I love it, girl.
Mhm.
My goodness, that was good.
Honoring you in your snake vibes.
Yes, snake energy, honoring that snake energy. So
Mhm.
I am, you know, when the dandelion becomes the puff, is that?
Blowy wishy flower,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'm one of those blowy, wishy flowers in a category 5 tornado, right? So
Mm.
I'm super delicate right now and vulnerable and I'm in a whirlwind of things at this time in my life,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like holding on to hope on that root, like to keep me grounded, but all of my little petals are just like flying away. It's funny because I'm like holding on with the roots and I'm not uprooted. So I'm trying to get through the storms right now, but I'm rooted and I have people and resources and really great things that help to keep me rooted, but I'm going through it. And and I think that's why too, like I'm wearing the bright colors today because I want to like conjure some of that lightness and that, that higher vibration. Because girl, I would be in black right now and my vibration be very low, but I'm really working on trying to get my external and my internal to kind of come together. So
Well, keep in mind that even in this crazy storm, when the wind is blowing and all the blowy wishy flowers are literally being scattered all over the earth, they're lightening the load, right, of that
Mhm.
stalk to hold, and it's planting new propagations and new seeds of goodness everywhere that you don't even see that's being germinated. So go ahead and just flow in that storm, girl. And blowy wishy flowers is going to give someone else that good energy, right? Because they're making a wish. So just rock with it, lean with it. Like,
Yes. I love that. And I want a blowy wishy flower t-shirt now. Instead of it being dandelion, I want
yep.
blowy wishy flowers. But you're right. I could see how that can also hold true, even though I'm looking at it in this like destructive, overwhelming way. But then again, nothing is inherently good or bad, right?
Well,
Even a
like a
storm.
snake can be terrifying, right?
Right, right. So I'm spreading my wishy flowers all over,
Yep.
and I'm hoping that people will catch them, or
Mhm.
others will, receive them as well.
Yes.
Yes, wonderful.
Thank
Ivelitza,
you
what
so
is your check-in for today?
My check-in for today. So I guess I'm feeling a little like my wardrobe as well.
Yes.
So it's like colorful, right? There's color there, but there's also like there's still something on top, or like
Like,
there's still something there there's a layer that can be taken off. And I'm aware and conscious, but I'm going to continue to be aware and conscious because that's just where I am right now. And I don't want to force in taking it all off just yet because that's just where I am. And I'm here to honor that. And I'm also here to feel all of the different spaces that I go through in having the bright and then the dark on top, as you can see, like a little bit of emotions bubbling up. And I think everything that we also shared is so just perfect and on time. I don't know if any of you are moon lovers, but I sure am. And there's a full moon happening. Hey, yes, girl, my mystical girls. Okay, so There's this full moon that we is approaching us this Friday.
Oh,
It's
yes.
a huge, big energy of Scorpio, right? And I'm Scorpio, sun and moon. So I'm really in it, right? And this is usually where I swim and kind of live. So for me, it isn't anything tragic or like something huge is happening. Like I'm dancing through it. Like this is like I'm aware, I'm observing. But like, yeah, this is all normal that we're all kind of like at the cusp or like something kind of like at the edge of something, right? Like Scorpio's very daring in that way. We will like to bring the light to like the darker parts of like of ourselves and others. We're always a mirror. And so it can become uncomfortable to be in the space of a Scorpio, the space of transformation.
Mhm.
But here we are. We're asked to be courageous and brave and to feel ourselves through it. So that's the
Brave.
medicine, to
Yep.
feel through it. And then we'll get to the other side. And then there's beauty and deliciousness and like, oh my God,
Mhm.
like I made it on the other, like I can do that. I can feel my way through this and get to the other side, you know? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so that's where I'm at.
So how do you take
And maybe
yourself
I'll take off my jacket later, but for now,
absolutely. Well, how do you take yourself through that transition? Take care of yourself, I meant, through that because it sounds heavy. And especially from that Scorpio energy that you just mentioned.
oh my God, that's such a good question because all of my work is about like advocating for self care and to have moments of slow down, especially as women, as nurturers, as mothers, we're constantly giving, right? So
Mhm,
how do we do that for ourselves? How do we mother ourselves
Mhm.
inside of mothering so much around us and right outside of us? So
Mhm.
like love, I have my daily rituals of like prayer and like I love to go on walks in nature and like I like to journal often and this is the way that I get some of my emotions and thoughts out on paper and out of my own space and like just be with it here on paper because it can become overwhelming, right?
right.
So that's one of the ways that I take care of myself. I love my Epsom salt baths because as a doula and as a mother, I'm like as a doula, a birth and postpartum doula, I'm in hospitals, I'm in other people's homes. Like, so I'm encountering a lot of different energies and people, right? So it is essential for me to find these pockets of like, let me take a 15-minute bath to reset, to
Mhm.
let go of some of the things that I might have picked up knowingly or unknowingly. And so that's how I keep myself well and spiritually well 'cause
Mhm.
I used to be like the disempowered, chaotic empath. And, and so now I find myself being more the empowered empath. But
Mhm.
what shifted was really being a demand, like a stand for my own self care for these
Mhm.
moments of replenishment, right? Because otherwise there's a ton of burnout. And then how I show up for my family and how I show up for my other families, it's not really my full self and integrity.
Ah, there's so much you said that I want to unpack, just thinking about the mothering piece of it, right? Because as women and nurturers, y- we want to mother, but the mothering yourself, like that's a big one and not easy for folks.
Often the forgotten piece.
Things though too, like most people will only do it when life crumbles around them and makes them do it instead of doing it voluntarily. And, that's honestly one of the things that I've been really intentional about encouraging in our homeschool social group is I want the parents have to be there, but go do something for you. You don't need to be there to hover and to micromanage your child. Go read, go journal, go walk in the same park, but take this time. It's not a lot. And I'm like begging this of the moms to do something for themselves during this time because when else are they going to do it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kudos to you for supporting her in a moment where she didn't know how to support herself, perhaps, and that's where the sisterhood and that's where these conversations with other women come into play. That's why circle is also so important right? In circle, when we meet monthly, we do rituals. We do these little self-care practices. And it's all just so that the women can get into the flow of it and hopefully take it into their homes, into their lives, into their workspace, into their time with their daughters and families. And so they can start to create a shift. And there's a new conversation for motherhood
Yeah,
then, right? And there's a new way that now we're teaching our daughters on how they can do it, right?
Amazing.
absolutely.
So much. I'm already, tingling and buzzing because there's just so much to talk about today. Um, so the next part, Ibelita, of our ritual is to just have a sip, and we call them
Mm.
shift sips. Did you have a sip today?
Yes, I have my cafecito here.
Amazing. So, do you have? Tell us what you're drinking.
Well, this cafecito is cafecito that my husband made. I worked an overnight so I came home about 7:45 this morning and he had this brew. So I just added some creamer
Mhm.
and my favorite flavor to it actually and some cinnamon. And this is my cafecito for this morning. And I
Yeah,
sip slowly. I like to savor it and enjoy it. And if I need to warm it up again, it happens.
sure. Sure. Absolutely. There's no judgments, right? So yeah, so I also have a sip today and I'm not this morning I enjoy teas. And the other day I was trying to do a copycat Starbucks. What is it called? The medicine ball where it's like mint and lemon and I think ginger. So I made it, but I said I don't want something hot today.
Mm.
So I put seltzer in it and some ice. So now it's like my new favorite thing.
Oh,
So it's like, it looks like muddy water, unfortunately, it's not very pretty, but it's a sparkling tea. That's what I'm drinking, a sparkling
oh,
this morning, and it just feels very refreshing and light, which I'm kind of on that vibe today.
I love it.
Like it. Like it.
And then finally, as a part of our ritual is essential oils and how they support us. So the scents that shift us. So Jen will come to the conversation just sharing an essential oil, its properties and how it could support us. And it's also related to the podcast, which is really nice. So Jen, what do you have for us today?
Well, yes, it will absolutely be related to the conversation. And today
Mhm.
we have myrrh oil. And I know you've heard me talk about frankincense in the past, right? Frank, father, myrrh, mother. And
Mm.
since we're shifting like a mother, this is our mother oil. The emotional properties of this is nurturing the soul's relationship with its maternal mother and with the earth. The oil supports individuals who have disturbances with the mother child bond, whether it's a division between the child and the biological mother or Mother Earth herself. Myrrh can help bridge the gap and heal the disturbances. This division or lack of attachment may be related to adoption, birth trauma, malnutrition, experiences of abandonment, or other childhood issues. Like the warmth of a mother's love for her child, myrrh assists individuals in feeling safe and secure. So it is the oil of Mother Earth. And
Mhm.
I prefer the rollerball versus this because it's sap, it's resin. It is so thick, it's absolutely hard to get the lid off of that, but it's nice because you can just rub it on your wrist, put it over your heart if you're feeling like you need that nurturing and love, and, just to be more connected because goodness knows I have some mother effer experiences. So I need to nurture myself and work a little bit more with myrrh. Before.
Mhm.
Amazing. I'm wondering if I could incorporate it into my bath, when I
Yeah.
those
Just mix it with your bubble bath, like the bubble part. Mix it with that instead of just putting it straight on the water because a lot of people don't realize oil and water don't mix. And so if you put it in your bath, it's just going to float right on top. And
yeah,
so mix
yeah.
it in.
Thank you for sharing that, Jen. Sandra, you mentioned the love for herbal teas, and I love when Jen was mentioning the myrrh oil. I heard motherwort, which is one of the herbs that I use a lot in my postpartum space, and I've even shared some motherwort tincture in the women's circle, and it's a heart opener. Utilize it like, and it's for the womb, and it brings that mother energy, like that nurturance from Mother Earth to us. And so, yeah, so it has beautiful properties to open our heart, to expand, but also to ground us. And like if we have any like womb stagnation, it also has the right little properties to help like move the energy along. So I like to use it in my yoni steams when I
Mhm.
do it. And then I also love the tincture underneath the tongue. And of course, we're mentioning herbs and oils, but we have to use them accordingly and with,
Okay.
with, yeah.
Amazing. Well, we have so much to say, so let's get into it. So, Ibetliza, you are a doula, and I think for our listeners out there who may not have experience with
Mhm.
doulas or may not know what that actually means, I would love for you to give us an overview of doulas and what does a doula actually do, and the difference between a doula and going to, let's say, a traditional hospital. I would love to get some feedback on that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So, a doula, in the traditional sense, for me, a doula is a woman in the community who was of service to the community. Many years ago, even in the campo from where my parents are, in the countryside of the Dominican Republic, there was also always mentioned of a woman who would come to the home when there was a woman who was about to give birth. And she was the person designated to take care of that woman for those for birth and those 40 days. So in that sense, a doula was this traditional woman who came to be of support and was of support in the community. And so now in modern times, a doula, a birth doula, is someone who accompanies you to your birth, who supports you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically before, during, and even after your birth. The postpartum doula is specifically there for that 40-day care after birth. But
Mhm.
the birth doula is holding space for you and giving you education and guiding you because more than likely you've either done it yourself personally in your own life or professionally, obviously, you're now doing it. So that's the role of a doula is to hold space for a new mom, a second time mom, a mother who's looking to feel nurtured, who's looking for some guidance, who's looking to feel grounded and overall supported in her experience.
Mm.
And I have to say, like, I love my husband. He's amazing. But for me and my experience having my mother in law there, was similar to, not exactly for everybody, but similar to having a doula, right? Because in the senses, you need a woman that knows how to support another woman because they've been through it. Our husbands love us, but they panic. They don't know what to do when we're crying. They don't know what to do when you say, "You put me in this position," because then they think, "Should I run away? Does she
Yeah.
hate me?" They don't
Right.
realize all of the chemicals and the hormones and the fluctuations, but a doula is so in tuned with that, and she is that navigational beacon, right? She knows when you're having back pain and how to help you stretch it, or how to work with gravity, or how to calm the dad so that mom can have a moment to breathe and push. So, doulas, I think, are not utilized enough in
Mm.
society. It
Mhm.
is such an imperative part of our shift process into becoming a mother. They even have death doulas
Oh,
to help
yes.
transition into the afterlife. And I think there's such a blessing to the world and the community. And I really hope from this conversation, people will look into these services for birth or death, whichever they may need. But doulas, I'm telling you, it's the key.
Absolutely. It's just, I remember those stories, Ibelitza, from my grandparents and sharing with me the woman that would come over,
Mhm.
my family in Puerto Rico, and they would come over and they would have certain herbs and, they would really just help the woman transition as she's giving birth. And it's just such a sacred role. It's such a sacred role. All the supports that are given during that really scary time.
Mhm.
If you're a first time, mom birthing, like that's really
It's
it
a
can be
very vulnerable time, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot of unknowns, there's a lot of questions. And so my role is to kind of ease a lot of those questions for mom and dad. Jen, you spoke about your husband being in the room while you were birthing. Yes, that's exactly how it can go. And part of my role as a doula is to also inform, educate, guide the dad
Mhm.
so that he can be all that for his wife or his partner.
Yep.
Because men do need to, they do need to be guided. They need to, and that's how they feel empowered in the room. And you tell them, oh, you put them on task and they're like, oh, okay, they're the hero in that moment. So it's very important to also support them. And because also as he supports her, as she feels loved and supported, her hormones rise
Yeah.
and help her through her pain and ease those contractions.
Mhm.
So it's really, it's
Mhm.
really a team effort.
Well, it is. Men will rise to the occasion if they have that direction, and then they get to experience the birth of their child through a lens of leadership and love versus fear and panic, which is
Mhm.
the way that anyone would, I'm sure, prefer to bring their child into the world. But I think what an amazing, like, in real time training it is because that almost sets the father up from there, right, to learn how to continue to support their wife in little ways throughout this because of the doula's training and support. So I'm a huge fan of this service.
It's like a win from like day one for everyone. It
Mhm,
does give him confidence. It
mhm,
does give them time together to work out. I put them in different, we do a prenatal and I show dad where to touch mom, how to get her
mhm.
into different positions so that when I'm not there and she's in those initial, stages of labor, he knows how to
I
support her
love
and
it.
help her. He's the
Mhm.
complete hero in the moment. Yeah, it works as a collective, as a family.
absolutely. And I think that, with including the father, dad, it just gives them an opportunity to I've heard feedback of men saying, "Well, I didn't know what to do," or
Mhm.
"I was just kind of there," or, "What am I gonna do in the birthing room?" So having that I think is so important. When people think of doulas, I think and at one point I thought this as well. It's the act of, helping the mom give birth. But what you're describing is more than that.
Mhm.
So much more than that. Can you describe you talked about the prenatal classes and with dad. Can you describe some more of some of the actual services that happen within working with you as a doula?
Sure. So what that can look like is I bring some of my other, services or tools with me. So I am also a Reiki practitioner. So if I'm accompanying you to the hospital, I'm going to Reiki that hospital room, right? There's
Mhm.
so much that happens in these rooms. It's a hospital.
Mhm.
I need to clear the energy so that things can flow in there, right? So
Mhm.
I clear out the room. I clear mom before I head to any birth, I pray. We pray, right? Because I know something bigger than me has led me to be in that room or with that mom that day and that time,
Mhm.
right? So I continue to walk with that knowingness into our space. And I always bring that into my prenatals, into the hospital thereafter. But in the prenatals, so what we're discussing is the birth plan. What is her ideal birth? What is her vision? How am I supporting that vision? How do we all as a team, husband included, support her vision so that when we get to the hospital, or if she's going to birth at home, everybody's on board with her vision.
Mhm.
So I give a copy to the nurses and everyone on staff the day that I get to the hospital so that everyone can support that same vision. And what that looks like is I use aromatherapy in the room. So I like to diffuse mom's favorite scent. Of course, everything is consensual first. And I like to create what like a birth ceremony for mom. I know I keep kind of going back between prenatal and the actual birth. That is kind of like how things flow. Uh, so yeah, so in the prenatals, and then dad is always included in these
Mhm.
conversations, right? So he's always included in the knowing. So although he's not actually carrying baby and he's not always like can't always feel and understand everything, being in the conversation very much helps him understand his partner as well and her
Mhm.
process. So that's the first prenatal. The second prenatal, we discuss more about what is postpartum. How can we prepare? What does the body need? We need warm meals, we need warm teas, we need lots of oatmeal. If we're looking to breastfeed, we discuss what are the different, what does that look like? Is she going to breastfeed and how that looks like? If she's going to formula feed, maybe she's going to do a combo. And then my job is to just give her resource, support her with resources, maybe a lactation consultant. Well, I'm a holistic nutritionist, so I'll help her with what she can be eating to produce quality milk, not just milk, but quality milk for her
Mhm.
baby and where her baby is in their development. I prepare meals for moms. So there's just like, it really depends if I'm supporting you in the birth space or in the postpartum space. In the
Mhm.
postpartum space, I'm cooking for you. I'm making teas. I'll bring in yoni blend and we'll do some steaming when the time is right. If the mom is open, we'll continue to do Reiki so that she can find ease in her healing. A lot of the times dad get Reiki too. It's very relaxing. It puts them to sleep and they get some restful sleep.
Mm.
Um, so those are the different ways that I work with my families and my moms. It's really is unique to every family. Every family has their own unique needs. Sometimes there's more children involved. I love when there's more children involved. We bond and we integrate. I read them books, we play. We make mom lactation cookies, and it's just a
Mhm.
beautiful family experience. And so my job as the doula is to be there overall for the family. It's not just for mom or the baby, it's for everyone and the integration of the family, as opposed to maybe a baby nurse who would come for the baby
Mhm.
and just the baby. The doula is in service of the collective, the whole, the
Mhm.
family. So it's really a holistic approach to care.
I love it, and I mean, I'm just like, "Oh, so much education," and I know this is as natural and has been around as long as time has been, but I'm like, "Why did this get lost?" But I have a question, not to derail everything, but I am so interested in the yoni pots because I learned about them through, a Chinese, no, acupuncturist that I follow. I guess that's what she is, and she would go to the Korean wet spas in
Mhm.
California, and then she would talk about the yoni pots that they would do and things like that, and I'm like, "I need to know more. What's in them? What are the benefits? How does this work?" Because it's stuff that people that are not birthing can do for their health as well, so tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So yoni steaming is a very old tradition um that women used to, that we've used to heal ourselves after birth. And we've also used it to induce, properly use with a midwife or practitioner. You can use it to induce labor and you certainly use it to heal after labor. I discovered it after I had my children because I had two C-sections with my children. My first baby was breached, and no matter what I did, she was still a breached baby. So that ended up in a C-section. And so how did I somehow I discovered the herbs and I started to practice. And it started to help me connect back to my center because when you have a C-section, the nerves in that area are severed. So the way they communicate is severed. So I had to bring back communication and feeling sensation in this part. There was like a lower sex drive, like there was just disconnection. And this helped me bring back and feel and connect. And it became a ritual, this very sacred ritual that I practiced once a month to start off. And it helped me balance my hormones again. It helped me with my fatigue. Again, it just helped me connect, heal within
Mhm.
because then I went on to have a second C-section with my twins. And there was even more trauma to the area. So these herbs, so the idea behind the herbs is that once you bring them to a boil, they release their natural oils. And since our vaginal walls are so porous, we
Absolutely.
absorb
Absorb.
it really easily.
So
And
it's
so
my
that's
under
where the healing comes.
I don't know if I have this right. Can you tell us so for those that don't know, this is basically like tea steaming your lady parts. So is
Yes.
it
Thank
like
you for
a
clarifying,
bucket?
Jennifer.
What is it?
Thank you for clarifying, breaking that down. Yes,
I'm like,
that
yeah,
is what we're doing.
steaming your lady parts, but like, what is it? Is it like a bucket with a toilet seat on top? Like, how does this look? What is this experience like? I'm so like, I want to
Let
know
me
what I'm
give you
getting
this
into.
visual. Absolutely. So listen, when I first started over 10 years ago, my children are now 13, they'll be 13 and 11. So when I started, I used to bring so I bring different herbs that I know work for me after some time of research. By the way, I've also studied with Robin Rose Bennett, who's here in town in New Jersey, and I studied with her herbalism so I can be able to offer it to the public. So I studied these herbs and the ones that primarily would be beneficial for fertility, for birth after healing, and things like that. So I started to practice on myself. So it is like a tea concoction. You bring like 3 cups of water to a boil. I add my herbs. I bring down I bring it down to a simmer for 3 to 5 minutes. Once that happens, I turn it off, and then I'm going to bring my herbs into a clear crystal bowl, no PBA, like a nice crystal bowl, because again, this is going into your most intimate parts. Want it to be soup or also organic herbs, right? And so I have a seat where it has a hole, it's a wooden seat. And it has a hole in the middle. So underneath that hole, I'm going to put my bowl of herbs that is
Mhm.
nice and steaming. However, you're not going to sit on the herbs when they're still super hot. You want to be careful not to burn yourself. So you want to let it cool off, but you still wanted it to be warm enough where when you sit on it, you're going to receive this warmth. And it feels so good and relaxing and calming. And so envision yourself like with nice relaxing music in the background or you know, some
Yeah.
Reiki playing in the background. And you put a blanket over you. You have a nice dress and you're over the bowl of herbs and you put a blanket over you and you turn off the lights and it's just you and your herbs and your meditation. And this is your sacred ritual to connect with yourself, with your softness, your divinity, your femininity. It doesn't get closer to this is
It
it right here.
it's
And
so
you set
beautiful.
your intention and you give it a prayer if you want to. And this is your healing moment. You can
I could just see
cry.
me calling Sandra though, telling her I steam burned my vagina and I don't know what to do to fix it.
That's a Jen moment right there for sure. I could see that happening with Jen.
Then we are not creating burnt yonis. We
No,
are not.
no. I
Oh,
just love this practice because it's such a I mean, think about the love
oh,
and how delicate it is, and the fact that we do not pay that kind of self-care attention to the most intimate parts of
no,
being a woman, right? We don't we don't besides a yoni steam, I don't know what else we do
true.
that really supports that area. And I just love it because just thinking about the feeling and the sensation of that, right?
Yes. Yes,
Right?
it's
Ugh,
true. And
And then
so, like, there's a lot that can come up in a session, by the way, like, even a day or two after. I encourage journaling after the session to see what comes up. And, we're talking about ways in which we can mother ourselves, especially for the
yeah.
month of May, right? We're soon approaching May and it's Mother's Day in a couple of weeks, right? And the conversation, how do we mother? This is a beautiful practice in bringing back that energy of mothering ourselves.
yeah.
Right?
Oh, I need all the tips on mothering yourself. So like this, I am like I need to start thinking about what kind of herbs. So tell me, I've never done a yoni steam and I'm so interested. So tell me just some examples of herbs that I would get to start
Right.
a yoni steam.
So everyone's going to be very different, right? And
Mhm.
so initially I would do an intake depending on, where you're at in, are you trying to conceive? Did you just have a baby? Are you in perimenopause? Because now that I'm 46, I'm using it for other reasons, right? And these herbs also have, this yoni steam ritual is also good to keep ourselves moist and flowing, right? So it does increase circulation in that area. So we do feel more. So it's helpful in so many different ways. So some of the herbs that I love to use that I mentioned before is the motherwort. It's a very motherly, nurturing herb.
Mhm.
So I love to use motherwort. I like to use calming herbs like chamomile and lavender. I like to use rose a lot,
Mm.
dry rose, because not only does it smell really good, and once that comes to a boil, the aromatics of the rose just reminds you of your divine feminine, like your feminine essence. And it's just like it's one of it's the vibrational frequency of rose is very high.
I was gonna say it's the
So
highest one, yeah.
right. So imagine taking in the steam of the rose from your most sacred center up, up,
Mhm.
up into you, right? Like you can literally visualize that as you're steaming. So those are some of the herbs just to keep it general and soft. And, for anyone who's looking to just start, those are very gentle
Yeah.
herbs that almost anyone can use because
Mhm.
they're just very calming.
Yes.
So those are great and very feminine. So those are just great starter.
I love this. I love this so much. And, I love that you also spoke about like women in certain ages and transitions and things like that because we can all be supported with this
Mhm.
kind of ritual. My final question about steams or yoni steams is how often do you do it? You don't have to, give us a prescription, but just curious for yourself or for some of your clients, how often do you do them?
Thing that you say prescription because I do like to call it a womb prescription when I work with
Mhm.
clients, right? So like I give a prescription of like what herbs to use, how often, depending on where they are, and what is their goal, right? What is their intention? And then for them to practice outside of what we do. But I personally like to practice at least once a month before my cycle is my preference because it really sets me up for diminishing any PMS symptoms. It just like turns around my fatigue. Like it helps me just naturally release it. It also helps me just like slow down and remind me that this is a sacred time approaching where I can honor myself in that way and slow down, and really be with this sacred moment that my body is going through. My body's having a release. And so, you know, we're talking about different transitions and different points in our lives in our menstrual cycles. Like when we don't have our periods, right? Like that, there is a mourning that I think that happens, right? So even before I can see myself approaching perimenopause or whatever, I understood the sacredness of my menses because in my younger years, I had suffered. There was a lot of, I used to get, and like there was a lot of tears and I wanted to hide and I felt very uncomfortable. So this was just like me learning how to heal myself, and kind of rewrite my story so that now that I have daughters, teaching them that they don't have to suffer through their menses. There's other ways, and to tune into our bodies and to journal and to really get curious about what's happening for ourselves. And it's okay to slow down and honor it.
So I seen a few things on your website. Well, there's quite a bit on there actually, but it looked like you had something that you were doing with young adolescent girls. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm
Mm.
like, ooh, I wonder if there's like, adolescent workshops, right? That you offer to help girls to understand the sacredness of their bodies and how to care for it. Is that something that someone's asked you to do before?
Yes, they have. I have had other mothers ask me, like, can we do a ceremony? My daughter just got her period for the first time. I'd like to sit with other women and other moms and other girls her age and have a ceremony kind of support them, guide them, and have it be like a full ceremony. So I have led those before. I would love to do more of that in the world. To be honest, I have had my hands full with being a mother and
Sure.
then, my doula work and my circles and stuff, but that is definitely something that I crave to do more of with support of my community because I'm clear that as I expand, I want to expand. I need support in order to expand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I call in my community, and I share my vision, and then I call them to action. I
Mhm.
need you to support me in this way. I want to grow this. That's something that I recently started to do because I didn't even have the courage to ask my community to support me in my vision in that way. But I noticed if we were a community, then that is how we show up for one another. And that
Mhm.
I had to be the one to lead the conversation in that way. Everyone has been, my sisters have been so receptive.
Yeah.
The community has been so supportive. So, yeah.
You're just bringing back just, you get caught up in the day to day and work and the stress and all of that. And you just forget how important the community is and how they do show up and how they do, need it as well. Right. So having these services and these opportunities and reaching out and
Mhm.
saying it out loud, like you were saying, like, naming what you're asking for or naming the thing really just is so powerful. And I also just want to honor, I love how you celebrate transitions, right? So
Mhm.
we talk about shifting on our podcast all the time. So thinking about, I love the fact that you held a ceremony for this child who was having her period and the mom and the community there. And you talked about, obviously supporting mothers through their journey and then, perimenopause in the next phase of life. So there's just so many ways that, doula support or just spiritual support and community support can help folks through this. And it's not just women, right? Like men also need those type of doulas through their transitions.
Yeah, we've had circles for families
Mm.
where the husbands and the children come in and get to sit with us in the conversation. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's been part of the community work as well, is to create some events and some safe spaces for the dads and the fathers to also be a part of.
Oh, I love it. And that's how I met you, Ibetliza, is through Circle. And our mutual friend Elizabeth, she knew I was going through a hard time in my life, and she said, "Just come with me to one of these sister circles." And that's what she had called it. She goes, "We're going to go to a sister circle," and I said, "Oh gosh, what are we going to do? Is it going to be like overwhelming? I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to talk about my problems." And I walked in very, shoulders up, very tense because I was in that space that I was in. And I left and I remember saying, I feel like I'm floating
Mm.
because of the work and the energy shift that happened in my body. Something that was, I almost feel like taken away or lightened after I left the sister circle. And, we were a bunch of women that never knew, we didn't know each other. And we just sat there and we were super vulnerable. So, Ivelitz, I'd love you to talk about circles and circling and community and why it's important and maybe some other things that you do in your own circles.
Mhm.
Thank you, Sandra. I do remember that special time when you came
Yeah.
with Elizabeth. And I think at that time we had your sister there as well. So
Mhm.
it was a really special time, a very memorable time. So thank you for being a yes to the invitation that Elizabeth gave you. That is what sisterhood and community is about, right? So it's about sharing those things that have uplifted us, that have given us more life, that have given us more clarity, that
Mhm.
has brought us closer to ourselves. And that's what Circle is really about. I started Circle in 2018, and I had been led to a women's circle years before that. And I was from a friend. She started them in her house in New York. And I was like, what is she inviting me to? And I don't know, we all carry our own conversations for what happens when women gather or sisterhood based on maybe some experiences that in middle school or our families or something, right? And so we all bring our conversations. And so the community and sisterhood is also an opportunity to like kind of rewrite that conversation for ourselves, give ourselves and our sisters another opportunity, right? And see what that would feel like and have an opportunity to be the co-creator of that. So when women gather is really a safe space. My intention is always to create a safe space for women to land. Life is very fast. Lots is happening as mothers, as women. We're holding so much. So, this is really just an opportunity for me to hold you, for you to come, to land, to receive, and to hopefully leave with a new pair of lenses, right? Something that inspired you happened in the circle. Your sister shared something that resonated with you, and you felt a sense of ease or a little bit more space that you hadn't had when you walked in the beginning. And so what happens is you start to see yourself in one another. And so you start to not feel so isolated in your experience as a woman or wherever you are, right? So, and in Circle, we practice rituals, right? So I love to get women into the practice of some self care rituals. Again, the space is really a co creation between me and the ladies and the divine to like showing us what we need and how we can mother ourselves, how we can create those shifts inside of what's already the circumstances that we're in, right? Because life will give us circumstances. That's just life. So, how are we going to move and dance through these circumstances? And it's also an opportunity to find support, right? To maybe, share something with the sister that you normally wouldn't have shared about yourself, and something opens up or something opens up for her. And you get, I don't know, you find something new for yourself. You found, you know, a, a little bit more love and compassion for yourself in that moment. Or you were able to find compassion and then release something that you needed to forgive yourself for or someone else. So it's really an opportunity to be in the inquiry of yourself or where you are and how you want to move, how you've been moving and where you want to go.
Amazing. One of the things that I just want to comment on is as a woman, I hold a lot. I hold my family, I hold my work, I hold my, there's just too much that I'm holding. And I remember when I left the session, that release. And that was so needed for me at that time. And that is the mothering, the self mothering of you don't have to hold on to the weight of the world, Sandra. You have others that can help support that. And it's a reflection, right? So the other women that were there, we were reflecting one another in a lot of the work that you had facilitated us through. And a lot of it was just also receiving. And that's the other piece of it. We don't receive enough. And you had the wonderful Ilana Bell there, who I with her, and she was vocalizing and using her instrument, and to lay there and receive that, it was just a sound bath to the soul, directly to the soul. And um, the release and the receive, that those are the two major components of my experience in this circle. And I think is so important for folks, women, men, anyone to really seek out and to try to incorporate for their own self-care.
Right. So, Sandra, you speak about that release. And I think that release ties to like in Circle, we do a lot of shadow work. So, looking at the things that we haven't been willing to look at, the things we have been scared or deterred or whatever, right? And then here's this safe space where everyone's kind of taking a little peek at themselves. And you're feeling a little bit more bold in doing that too. So my job is to kind of to create that safe container, to give you some tools to kind of try to go to the root of what's really happening for Sandra or Jennifer, and then shedding some light so that Sandra can have some courage to be like, oh, that's what it is. And it's not so scary or ugly. It's like you can meet yourself with love and compassion in that moment, right? Because we're holding you and we're all doing the same. We're all up
Mhm.
to the same. We're all being vulnerable.
Mhm.
And then we work, with our different tools. We do a little sound, we do a little Reiki, we do some we do some rituals where we burn some things, we do some journaling, we do some paired sharing. And before you know it, you've released that thing that you walked in that was holding you down. And suddenly you're like, wait a minute, it
Yeah.
isn't that heavy, actually. I took a look and it isn't that bad. Or you met yourself with love and compassion and you were able to be with it, to feel it, to look at it. And inviting that shadow self or those aspects of ourselves is how we can alchemize it.
Yes.
So that's where you're then feeling like, oh, I had a release. Because now you invited it and it was part of you. It wasn't no longer outside of you like this shadow, this ugly thing. You created a safe space enough where it became friendly
Yeah.
and you got curious and invited it closer to you. Yeah.
This drop in wisdom. Ah, I feel that in my chest. I feel that in my chest. And
I wish you were closer because I'm having a circle this Friday
girl,
here in New Jersey, in Waldwick. I found a new home because I had moved location and I'm building again community.
yes.
And I'm so excited because it's a full moon in Scorpio. So there's
Mhm.
transformation dripping all over already.
Mhm.
And whoever's going to be there is meant to be there. And I know that. And
Mhm.
I'm ready.
Well, I have my connections still in the Northeast. I go to New York, often, so I'll be up there in a few months, and I'm hoping, you have something at that time because
Please tell me. I'll create it for you, Sandra. We'll
Yeah.
create circle for you
Oh,
just
I
so you
love
can land, girl.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, my heart is singing. Wonderful. So I think one of the things that I wanted to really think about is just the support, right? So, Jennifer and I, and on our podcast, we talk about how living life is supposed to be in community, right? And we really support the notion of supporting one another and just being there. And we've encouraged something called shift circles where folks can find their community and start building that. And if you had a couple of words of advice, or if someone is longing for community or wanting to reach out or create their own shift circle, what types of things would you say to them to help them in that journey of themselves?
The first thing I can say is to take the plunge. So just take the leap of faith, right? I've had women who come to circle and then they wanted to create their own circles and they have. And it's been beautiful for many reasons why her community didn't necessarily want to come and be vulnerable inside of the space I had created. So she's like, I want to create it for them. And she created this intimate circle and she got to know her sisters in a completely different way. And her sisters got to know her in a completely different way. And she took the plunge. She was courageous enough to do it. And now she's actually leading fitness groups in her community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's like some of the stuff and some of the juiciness that drips outside of circle. Like women's lives really start to shift as they start to feel supported and heard and seen, and they start to own their voice and who they are as they
Mhm.
start to discover themselves in this space. Because it's really a self discovery journey that I take them on. So, what would I say is take, you know, just take the leap of faith.
Absolutely.
Stay curious about yourself. Just stay curious. Have fun with it. I know transformation can be this sometimes it can be this heavy thing or
Mhm.
like this dreadful thing and so significant, but it doesn't always have to be. It can be light and playful, and you can light your candles and you can play with your roses and petals. And these are all things that we have in circle, as you know, right? Like
Mm.
it's this beautiful circle, and I bring the flowers and the roses. And it's really like a place to land.
Mm.
So allow yourself the opportunity to land. Create those safe spaces if you don't have them. And
Mhm.
otherwise, allow yourself to play in these safe spaces.
Absolutely.
So for someone that maybe not be as comprehensive in this arena, but they're like, but I feel what you're saying. I might not understand it fully. I might not be able to envision what's going on in this circle, right? Is this like a cult? Are you guys making sacrifices? Like, what the hell's going on? Like, 'cause
Right.
people, you never know with, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of actually saying the truth that
Yeah.
they don't want to say to themselves, much less other people. Like, you know, almost I'm curious. I'm like, "Oh, did you design like a downloadable how to help, guide someone that is like, I don't know what to expect, and I wanna know, like, what kind of clothes do I wear? How many people are there? Is it customary to take your shoes off? Do people stretch? Do I sit on the floor?" Like, I'm like, I need to see all the things,
Right.
and I'm like, "All right, where does this guidance come from if someone doesn't have such extensive, you know, experience that you do?" I also see this as a situation where, okay, someone that thinks they're all spiritual and woo woo, they think they're going to create a circle and pretend to be a therapist and therapize everybody. And I'm like, no, that's not what this should be. So I'm thinking, how does this get structured in a safe way to where it's truly that nurturing space and not someone pretending to be something that they're not, that could almost do more harm than good.
Right. So, discernment, always discernment.
Mhm.
um when we're doing spiritual work, or we're sitting in community or sisterhood, or we're being vulnerable in community, we need to do our own homework and research, right? And a lot of the times the best way to end up that you will end up in the right community is when you're invited by someone in your own community.
Mm,
A lot of these spaces, or these sacred spaces too, won't allow just anyone off the street to come and join. You have to have known someone to come. So that's my preferred way of doing all of my work. My doula work, my woman's circle, anything that I do is usually through a referral or word of someone else in the community.
Mhm.
There isn't a whole lot of, on my end, there isn't too much like marketing and stuff like that. It's either, Elizabeth invited Sandra, Sandra invited her sister invited, like it's like that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then you come for yourself and decide for yourself it's really for you, right? Because it may or may not be for you. That's fine
mhm,
too. That's your right to decide. So I
mhm,
always encourage discernment, discernment, discernment. And how do you feel in these space?
mhm,
How do you feel in these spaces that you are calling community? Does
Mhm.
it really feel like community? Does it feel safe? Or is it just, or they're just trying to convince you that it's safe?
mm, mhm,
Right.
So that's where your intuition also comes into play. And
And
part of
sorry.
what we do in Circle is also, how do we tap into our intuition? What is real for me, right?
mhm,
What is real for me? So no matter what I ever say or anyone, I always encourage you to be the owner of your own discernment, and you are your own healer. I'm
Mm.
here just to create this space. There's nothing that I'm actually doing
mhm,
for you. You are showing up and doing the work.
Yes. When you talk about discernment, it's interesting because there's the intuitively what you feel and how you feel in those spaces. And then there's the nervousness, awkwardness, and distinguishing the two. Because
mm,
I walked in with I was super tense and I had all of these preconceived notions of what I thought it was going to be. But as it was chipping away and I allowed myself to release and release and release, I said, oh, that really wasn't the truth, right? That was me trying to protect myself or me being really nervous because I was around strangers with a vulnerable, with a vulnerable event. It's important to distinguish the two things, right? So your intuition of I'm coming to the space and it just feels icky, or it feels like I'm trying to get convinced, or it feels like someone's pushing something,
mhm,
opposed to I'm recognizing that that awkward feeling, that uncomfortable feeling is because I'm coming against something that's been gnawing at me or something
mhm,
that I need to address. So those I just wanted to put out there because those are two distinctions to make.
mm, mm,
I agree. I agree, Sandra. And yeah, and that's why too, like when you come to Circle and you come because your sister invited you, that already feels a little bit more comfortable. Like your
Yeah.
sister wouldn't invite you to something that wouldn't be good for you, or maybe she's wanting to explore it with you,
mm,
and you're, And even in that experience, that can bring you closer, right?
Mhm.
To each other or so, yeah. And I always believe whoever's in circle that particular Sunday or Friday night is meant to be there. They
Mhm.
were guided there.
100%.
And so I trust that for me, I trust that inner guidance of my own self. And like, yeah, I always just hold space for whoever's supposed to show up will show up. Whoever needs it, the woman that is looking for it, the woman that's desiring it, she will be pulled into it if she's ready.
And I have to say, you are the reason for my own journey. You were my first circle that I've ever attended. And after that, I just felt such an opening because I was able to experience that level of vulnerability and that level of support. And it's a that was a pivotal time, and it was a hard time for me too. So it just, as you say, people are meant to be there. I 100% agree with that. And I'm also encouraging myself and others that when you see that person that needs that, to speak up. Because if Elizabeth didn't speak up, I would have never found you and that experience. And, she saw something in me that said, I need you to come with me and do this with me. And I'm
Mhm.
so glad that I did. So it's a reminder that when you get that that little to share that as well.
Right. And that's our intuition, right? That's like that intuitive nudge
Yes.
is that pull for something that you may have desired knowingly or unknowingly. And she was able to pick up on it and had the courage to invite you.
Yes, yes. Well, Ibelitza, if this is the first time that someone's encountered you, I would love for you to share just some of your offerings, where people can find you, just more information about you because you're just a plethora of wisdom and information. So, share with our listeners just where they can reach you.
Thank you. So, you can often find me on Instagram at IB _ motherhood. I also have a website that can be found on that page. It's recently changed, so I don't have the direct URL for you to share. Um, but Ibetliza Frias at gmail.com is also another great way to reach me for my birth or postpartum services. I also do one-on-one Reiki and yoni steam sessions. I'm a holistic nutritionist, so I support mothers in that sense as well. And then, of course, my When Women Gather monthly circles here in New Jersey.
Amazing.
Those are all amazing offerings. You're a powerhouse.
Thank you so much, ladies. I mean, um I'm grateful for your witnessing and your invitation today. Really, I felt like we had our own little woman circle, virtual circle here today. And I love that for myself, for all of you, and for the women listening, that this too is possible for them. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be difficult or too out of the way. It can really be simple and it can be so nurturing if we allow ourselves to receive that goodness that our community has available for us.
Amazing. Well, I just want to share some things that I'm going to take away from this conversation. So
Please do.
yes, I am going to remember the importance of mothering myself and what action items I can do to make that happen. I'm looking up some of those herbs for that yoni steam. I definitely would love to have that. And also when I'm in hard times in life, which, I'm experiencing some now, I isolate. And that is a default, right? I isolate and try to do it on my own because women kind of put their boots to the ground and they do. Now
Because that's what we were taught.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. So now it's like, okay, how can I lean into my supports? How can I lean into the resources? Because I'm so grateful for the abundance of love and people that I have in my life. And I know if the tables were turned, I would do everything in my power to help. I would do anything in my power to be of support. So this was just a reminder of the importance of all of that for me. So I really am super grateful for this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, I totally encourage you to take a look at just the sisters that are in your life and try to carve out just a little time. It doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be Pinterest worthy. It doesn't even have to be anything that you share because honestly, it should be like Vegas. What happens in circles stays in circle, right?
Yeah.
But make that time for yourself, for each other. And if you can't find the value in doing it for yourself yet,
Mhm.
then do it for other women. And when you lead with service, you will get so much back just as you are giving.
Yes. Yes. Well, Ibelisa, thank you so much for being here today. It has been such an honor to be in your space again. And listeners, if you have anyone that you feel would benefit from this conversation, who needs a little self-mothering,
Yeah.
who would love some extra supports and circle, who just, just need that extra love, send them this episode,
Mhm.
text it over to them, let them know that there is support out there and there's ways to do this.
By the way, I do have mothers who are like, where do I tune in? I want to listen. So can you share how moms how the moms in my community can also tune in to this amazing episode
Yeah.
created?
We're on YouTube is where we do a lot of activity at, but we're also on Spotify and Apple Podcast as well. We like YouTube because we can get a little bit more interactive with everyone. Go to our website for the shift-sister-podcast.com and there join the shift circle.
I mean, there's so many resources that we share. So all of it is on our website. And thank you for sharing that with your
That's
family.
amazing.
So yeah, so once again, it's such a wonderful conversation. I am so glad we were able to talk about this important shift in people's lives of being a parent, and also community and how community can show up for one another. So thank you everyone for listening in. Until next time. And that's it for today's shift. Thank you so much for sharing this space with us. If you're loving the conversation, become a shifty. Like, follow, subscribe, and most of all, share this episode with someone who's shifting too, or someone who seriously needs to get their shift together.
Do you have thoughts, questions, topic requests, or maybe you're feeling the nudge to collaborate? Visit us at shiftsisterpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. We're so grateful for your presence, your friendship, and your willingness to do the work with us. Because shift happens and we're not meant to do it alone.
We'll meet you back here next time to breathe, reflect, and talk shift.